Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another session in the Israel United Synagogue Adult Education Program entitled Lesson Known Chazanim of the Golden Age. This period is usually understood to be the years between the two world wars and included such luminaries as Yosef Rosenblatt, Mordechai Hirschman, Gershon Rotter, and Liebler Waldman. But with so much tons around, some of the other cantors who we would welcome today tend to get overlooked. Tonight, Rabbi Geoffrey Shisler will introduce us to some of these less well-known Chazanim and play some of their recordings. All the Israel United Cantorial sessions are presented in association with the European Cantors Association.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you again. You're very welcome. Before we start, may I please request that you don't send messages in during the talk. It's very distracting. But if you want to make comments afterwards, obviously we'll be very pleased to hear from anybody. From everybody, indeed. Now, lovers of Chazanot often talk about the golden age. What actually is the golden age of Chazanot? When was the golden age? Well, I've always thought it refers to the years between the two wars, when the Jewish population of Europe was at its greatest, and every shul had a chazan as well as a rabbi. Amongst these chazanim, Spencer's already mentioned, the superstars, Kvartin, Yosef Rosenblatt, Baruch Schmus, Mordechai Hirschman, and so on. These were chazanim who, thanks to young folk, became internationally known. When they came to give a concert, you could be sure the venue would be packed to the rafters. In this country, it was possible for a promoter to book the Royal Albert Hall for a Kuzovitsky concert and sell it out. I think today you could barely fill a Scout Hut for a Chazanot concert. But these people were truly superstars. They earned very large sums of money. Said in the 1930s, Kvartin was paid at least £1,000 for a concert. I looked it up and it seems that's the equivalent of about 18,000 today. But as well as these great stars, there were many fine Chazanim who didn't become international names. There were men with beautiful, sometimes outstanding voices who served their congregations with love and devotion, who were adored by their members for the wonderful ways that they interpreted our prayers and inspired those who were fortunate enough to hear them every Shabbat and Yom Tov. Many of these people didn't have the opportunity to make great names for themselves, and in actual fact, many of them didn't even want to. While we know little about the personal lives of most of these Chazanim, we're fortunate that some of them made the occasional recording that we still have. Some of these recordings were privately made, and only 1 or 2 copies were produced. Usually, they did them for themselves and for their families. Other people did record for well-known recording companies. And in those cases, it's usually possible to find out a little more about these people. This evening, we're going to listen to some of these wonderful Chazanim that unless you're a real Chazanot buff, you probably won't even have heard their names. I'm going to start with somebody I know nothing about at all. I acquired this recording from a Chazan called Israel Barsky, B-A-R-S-K-I. The only thing I was able to find out about him is that he was in Argentina in the 1940s. And he made this wonderful recording of Tal, which we're going to listen to now.
Imo beyatcho peres hateres vital tal noite aleyeret berho mimeget shomayim chaveino berho leyoir mitoy hashecho kano hachrecho mishoko vital
The next cousin is Solomon Steinberger. Cousin Steinberger was born in Budapest in 1883. He studied in Bratislava Yeshiva for 10 years and there he gained Smicha. He was a Chazan in the Freiburg Analager Schule in Frankfurt for 30 years. That was the largest synagogue in Frankfurt and held over 2,000 people. In 1939, he fled to London and settled with his family of 4 daughters and 1 son in Finsbury Park, where he made his living as a bookseller. It's said by his family that he taught 1,000 bar mitzvah boys in his time, and he recorded the name of everyone in a book which sadly is now lost. He didn't occupy any positions in London, but he was engaged to lead services at St. John's Wood for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. He died in July 1971. Solomon Steinberger was the grandfather of my dear friend Edith Binstock, knew him very well. We're going to hear him sing in what I would term a typically German style of Chazanut. It's very classical. You'll hear his very beautiful, resonant voice. And he's going to sing Mogen Ovos.
Mogen
Some of you may notice that the beginning of that piece, interestingly, is in Rozumny's book, and one wonders whether Chazan Steinberger took it from Rozumny, or perhaps Rozumny took it from Chazan Steinberger. We now move on to the Reverend Baruch Schmus. Chazan Schmus was born in Proskurov, Ukraine, on the 13th of May, 1899. And as a youth, he became an assistant Chazan in the great synagogue Odessa. In 1919, after surviving several pogroms, he left Russia for Palestine, where he went as a chalutz, building houses and building roads. He also joined the Palestine police band. He became an accomplished musician, learning to play several instruments. He studied at the Conservatoire of Music in Yerushalayim. He conducted services in Tiberias. He also sang with Chazan Sirota when Sirota visited Tel Aviv. In 1932, Chazan Schmus arrived in England, and he was engaged to recite Slichot and officiate the High Holy Days at the Pavilion Theatre in Whitechapel Road, at the then unheard of sum of £300, which is worth about £9,000 today. He served various synagogues in London, including Vine Court, Philpot Street, Sephardi Shul, and Philgate Street Great. He died around about 1974. I actually met Chazan Schmus only once, unfortunately. It was at a Hanukkah party in about 1970. In those days, there was a flourishing association of Chazanim in London, and we had every year a Hanukkah party. And one year, as I said, Chazan Schmus came, and I can tell you he could still sing. He was a very fine musician. He composed and published a number of compositions including Sim Shalom and Mimkomcho. He died on the 20th of October, 1976. Here, we're going to hear him sing Shema Yisrael. You'll have noticed, of course, that had no accompaniment, and it makes you wonder that perhaps this was one of those recordings that wasn't made to be sold commercially, but was made privately. But as I said, a very fine Chazan with a very beautiful voice. We now come to Chazan Maurice Katzen, about whom I haven't been able to find very much. He was born in 1902 in Riga, Latvia. He went to South Africa in 1932, settling first in Johannesburg, later becoming the cantor of the Sea Point Synagogue in Cape Town. On his way to South Africa, he undertook a concert tour that took in several European countries, ending up at the Paris Opera, where he was engaged to sing alongside the great Russian bass Shaliapin in a number of operas. He died in 1974. Here we're going to hear him sing a composition some of you may know. We normally hear it sung with a choir, although here Chazan Katzen is going to sing it on his own. It's by Kalimnik, and it's Uvlucho Yomar. Our fifth cousin is Cantor Carl Newman. Carl Newman was born in Volhynia, Ukraine in 1891. And as well as being a cantor, he sang on stage and in the opera. As a child, he sang with the famous cantors, including Nissi Belzer. And he later studied singing in Vienna. He became the Oberkantor, the chief cantor, Josefstadt Temple in Vienna at the age of 22. The famous opera director, Felix Weingartner, invited him to sing in the Vienna Opera, where he performed with great success under the name Carlo Novelli. He also sang at the Prague Opera. After a concert tour in the United States, 1928-29, he returned to Europe and was appointed Oberkantor of the Friedenstempel in Berlin. He moved to America in 1939, where he became Chazan at the Chai Odom Synagogue in Boston. And he also taught the New England Conservatory of Music. Here we're going to hear him sing Ritzei B'Mnuchoseinu. Our next Chazan is Chazan Naftali Alter. If you were 30 years older, you lived in London, there's a very strong probability you would have heard of him. Chazan Alter was born near Warsaw on the 22nd of April 1875. His father was Rabbi Chaim Solomon Holtrecht. Chazan Alter held his first cantorial post at Storsuf near Lodz, the age of 17. And then he was appointed Chazan at the Pikucholim synagogue in Lodz at the age of 19. And he studied under the famous Cantor Geoffrey Birnbaum. In June 1908, he was appointed the first reader at Liverpool's Great Synagogue. And in February 1911, he was elected to the Central Synagogue in Liverpool. He came to London, be Chazan at Notting Hill in about 1918. He didn't stay there very long. In 1920, he went to Cannon Street Road Synagogue, where his predecessor had been the Reverend Benzion Hoffman. Chazan Hoffman went from there to North London Adas, where he remained for much of his life. Chazan Alter stayed in Cannon Street Road Synagogue, where he stayed for the rest of his life. He was well known in East European cantorial circles and was president of the Chazanim Association of the Federation of Synagogues, and president of the choral section of the Association of Chazanim of Great Britain. He was also a moral. Naftali Alter was the composer of 3 books, Imre Shefer. In one of his books, Samuel Ullman dedicated his composition of Sim Shalom to Reverend Alter. Chazan Alter died on the 4th of February 1950. And on his tombstone it says, "The voice of a sweet singer in Israel is hushed." Here we're going to hear him sing his own composition, Hayom.
Ay,
Our last cousin this evening is cousin Israel. I'm not sure how to say his surname. Some people spell it B-A-C-O-N. Some people spell it B-A-K-O-N. Israel Bacon, or Israel even Bacon. Rather strange name, but in fact it is said to come from the name Bacon from the initials of the Hebrew expression B'nai Kadosh V'Nitbachim, sons of the saints and martyrs. It was a very famous family. Israel Bacon was born in a small town in Galicia in 1910, and his family were Chazanim. He was the son of a very famous cousin, Hershleib Bacon. At the age of 9, due to a wave of pogroms, his family moved to London. Then they went to Berlin, where he sang in his father's choir. At the age of 11, Israel was asked by a Jewish theatre in Berlin to sing at a performance. His father wasn't happy about that at all. And as a result, in order to protect his son and his family, he went back to Kishinev, where he studied in various yeshivot, including the Bobov. He studied Nusach and Chazanut with his father and other local Chazanim. And at the age of 21, he appeared in various cities in Europe. He served as a Chazan in Czechoslovakia. He sang in concerts in London, Hamburg, Antwerp, and Berlin. And in Berlin, he produced several records, including songs in Yiddish. In 1939, he was appointed Chazan at the Beit Midrash Avat Reim in Krakow. When he arrived there, the war broke out. He was transferred to the town of Ghetto, and in 1943 he was taken to the extermination camp in Belzec in Poland, where together with his wife and child, he was slaughtered by the Nazis. I, as it happens, have a very personal connection with Israel Bacon. That's because my Bubba, my mother's side, was a Bacon. It was a very well-known family. In fact, it's possible some of you may have heard of Maxie Bacon, who in this country was a very famous musical star. I remember seeing Maxie Bacon when my mother, Leah Shalom, took me to see him when he was appearing in Brighton at the Hippodrome. She took me backstage to meet him. Maybe that's where I got my interest in performance from. I'd like to think it goes back before Maxie Bacon and goes back to Israel Bacon and to Israel's father, Hershleib Bacon. We're going to hear Israel Bacon sing Brum Olam.
O זכותךו וצית כוסכו עטף סיופרט אמס 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 אשרי שישמע למצווי יסחו וסוירסך ודרך ויוסי מלכו וסוירסך ודרך ויוסי מלכו אמס 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 אפה הוא אדוי לי עמך ומך גיבור לא רפריבום ליהוא ויסבונים ליהוא ויסבונים אמס אמס אפה הוא ראשונס ויעתו הוא אחרין אמס ומבלודכו אלונו מלך ומבלודכו אין אלונו אין אלונו מלך אוי כהן מושיע אמס ממצרים גאליתונו עד השם אלוהיכנו ומבהוי סבותם בדיסונו אמס ממצרים גאליתונו אמס ומבסבותם בדיסונו אמס אוי בחיירי מורגתו ובחיירכו ישראל גבולתו אמס אמס בים סופלו הם בוקבתו וסדים תיבתו בדידים מבורתו אבריה אוי חסומיים צוריהם איכו מהם לא ינהייסם.
Well, I do hope you've enjoyed listening to these Chazanim, most of whom I expect you've never heard of before. I do very much want to thank Tony Honigberg for tidying up these recordings. If you'd heard them the way I sent them to him, they were nothing like as beautifully clear as they are now. Thank you for that, Tony, very much indeed. If anybody has any comments or questions, now would be a good time you can raise them. We'd be happy to hear from you. Otherwise, we'll hand over again to Spencer.
Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
Cousin Binstock.
Oh, thank you very much. I just wanted to let you know, Edith's grandfather who you played the second item, he was 75 when he made that recording.
Right.
That's
It's
what I
still
was
saying we should all be blessed.
Absolutely.
Very fine stimmer there.
Right up to the end. Right up there. He sang it out.
Jonathan Green.
Jonathan Greenstein?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. You mentioned Reverend Halter being at the Great Synagogue in Liverpool and the Central Synagogue. Which schools do you mean?
I can't tell you exactly. I've found the notes. In fact, the information from Reverend Halter I got from Dr. Michael Jolly's book, his Encyclopedia of Chazanim. So I presume he checked out the information. I can't tell you for sure exactly which schools.
Okay, thank you. I'll check the.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Alex Klein?
Cousin Halter, in actual fact, married my grandparents in Liverpool, and he also married my parents at Dunstan Road in Golders Green Shul. So, you know, we had a connection there. It was at the shul where Ram was the secretary. I can't remember the name in Liverpool. Shaw Street. That's where the shul was. So Cousin Halter, I think, was, if I remember correctly, it was Shaw Street shul.
Thank you.
Shaw Street, SHAW, Shaw Street, in Liverpool.
Thank you, Alex.
Because I have photographs of him. If you remember, you hadn't heard Halter, and I brought some of these recordings to one of the conventions, and you said, there's no recordings of Cousin Halter, and I played them, and to people's surprise. So those collections of recordings, I have quite a few, came from my mother of a Sholem. So she was given some from the family. So very, very interesting. Beautiful.
I don't know which of Cousin Halter's family is still with us, but I have heard from Cousin Schmus's family. They over the years they have been in touch with me.
Yeah, well, Cousin Schmus's family, the grandchildren live in Manchester, some of them, and I knew the children, two boys. Sam Schmus was in London, and his brother, they emigrated to Israel, and I think his sister also lives in Israel or lived in Israel. So the family I know pretty well because we work closely together, and they work with my in-laws family as well in Evering Road in London. So Sam worked with the family, so we knew them from London. And his children, I believe, and grandchildren have quite a considerable amount of recordings. So if you want to get some of them, they weren't published, but they were some very nice stuff.
It'd be a good idea to have a repository of some of this stuff. I know that they do exist. Is it FAU? FAU, I think, a university in Florida.
Florida Atlantic University.
Pardon?
Florida Atlantic University.
Okay, yes, they have an excellent collection. But it'd be nice to have it available to anybody who wants it. Does anybody else have any comment? Like to?
There's a comment from Russell Grossman. Louis Rum was certainly secretary at Shaw Street. He was my great grandfather.
Yeah, Ram. Yeah. Russell's mother was a Ram.
Right. Thank you.
And I noticed that cousin Schmus was wearing a silk talus, which I don't think any cousin or rabbi would be wearing nowadays.
That's true. Okay.
Any further comments? No. Right. So I'd like to thank Rabbi Geoffrey Shisler for his ongoing support for our cantorial sessions, and hope that his presentation will encourage you to seek out other recordings of the Chazanim we've heard tonight. I'm sure there are many others waiting in the wings for a future session. Thank you also, as we've heard, to Tony Honigberg for downloading and preparing all the recorded music, and also for acting as facilitator. Details of the current Edgeware program can be found on our website, www.edgwareu.com, or alternatively, you can contact our office@edgwareu.com, and ask to be placed on the circulation list for the adult education program. And this session tonight will shortly be, after editing, be placed on YouTube. Thank you for your attendance tonight.